They say in Marne Hollow, when the mist rolls in before the dawn, you can hear a bell ringing beneath the earth. Not a church bell, nor any made by human hands. It rings slow and deep, like the tolling of a forgotten god's heartbeat, a sound more felt in the marrow than heard with ears. The villagers pretend it doesn't exist, dismissing it with tight-lipped smiles and quickened steps. But every soul in the hollow has heard it. Mira Thorne was 12 when she followed the sound. She had always been peculiar, too curious for her own good, the grown-ups said. Her mother, a woman of blunt hands and gentler silences, had warned her never to go too deep into the hollow's woods. Things root there, she'd said once. Not just trees. But Mira wasn't the type to heed such warnings. That morning, the mist was thicker than milk, and the bell was louder than ever. It began at 4 chimes before dawn. Mira rose without really waking, drawn from her bed like a moth to flame. She didn't put on shoes. She didn't take a coat. She simply walked, nightdress fluttering around her knees, arms out as if to part the fog. The woods welcomed her like an old friend. No branches scratched her. No stones cut her feet. The bell led her deeper and deeper, to the heart of the hollow, a place few could name and none had seen. There, in a sunken glade tangled with roots and silence, she found the door. It was carved of black stone and etched with runes older than language. It had no handle, no lock, only a sense of patience, as though it had been waiting for someone, for her. Mira placed a hand upon it. "I am Mira Thorne," she whispered. The door opened. What lay beyond she never told. Not to her mother, nor to the priest who came after the villagers noticed the change in her. Her eyes became strange, one pale, one dark, and her voice sometimes echoed when she spoke too close to water. She returned before sunrise, barefoot and blinking, as though waking from a deep dream. But the bell never stopped. It rang every dawn, without fail, for the next 43 years. Then, one morning, Mira vanished. Chapter 1, The Cartographer. Jonas Ellery arrived in Marne Hollow with a map and a question. The map was ancient, drawn by candlelight on old vellum and marked with notations in a language no scholar could fully translate. The question was simple: why does this place exist? He wasn't the first to wonder. Marne Hollow didn't appear on any modern atlas, and yet it had been inhabited for centuries. It resisted progress. Electricity fizzled here. Machines jammed. Even watches ran slow. Something in the soil rejected time. Jonas was a cartographer, a seeker of truths hidden in topography. He followed rumors like breadcrumbs. The bell of Marne Hollow intrigued him more than he dared admit. The villagers didn't welcome him. They allowed him to stay in the old inn, a place called the Quiet Lantern, run by a grim woman named Nettie whose eyes didn't blink often enough. No one answered his questions. They only stared too long, and said too little. Until he mentioned Mira Thorne. Then, Nettie poured him tea and said, she went where no one should go. Jonas leaned forward. Where is that? Nettie looked out the window. Beneath. Chapter 2, Myra's Journal. He found it in the attic of Myra's cottage, buried beneath yellowed sheets and a box of owl bones. Her journal, leather-bound and sealed with wax, thrummed when he touched it. The entries were scattered, some lucid, others rambling. But one page stood out. There is a bell beneath the hollow. It is not a warning. It is a heartbeat. It sleeps, but not as we do. The door is not a gate, it is a mouth. And I am its name. Jonas didn't understand. Not yet. But he would. Chapter 3: The Door. It took him 3 days to find it. The bell rang each dawn, and each time, he let it guide him like mirror-head. On the 3rd day, he stood before the black stone door. It was colder than the air around it. The runes shimmered faintly, as if breathing. Jonas placed a hand on the stone. "I am Jonas Ellery," he said. Nothing happened. He tried again. And again. Still nothing. Frustrated, he shouted into the mist, "What do you want from me?" The bell rang once, louder than before. And then, a whisper, "Know her name." He returned to the cottage, poring over every scrap of Myra's writing. In a forgotten margin, he found it. "I left something behind. Something of me. I buried it with my first name." Jonas returned with a spade. Beneath the roots of an old yew tree behind the cottage, he found a small wooden box. Inside, a baby's bonnet, and a slip of parchment that read, "Mary." He returned to the door and whispered, "I am Mary Thorne." The door opened. Chapter 4: Below. Beneath the door lay a stair of roots and bone, winding endlessly downward. Jonas descended, each step echoing as if the hollow held its breath. There were chambers below. Some held murals, drawn in the ash of forgotten fires, strange figures bowed to towering trees with faces. In one chamber, he found mirrors that reflected not light, but memory. He saw Mira at 12, stepping into the same descent. He saw her older, hands shaking as she whispered to the stones. He saw her become part of the hollow, her shadow tangled in roots, her name etched into the walls. At the lowest chamber, he found her. She was not dead. Not quite. She stood in the center of the room, eyes closed, arms slightly raised. Vines wove through her limbs, pulsing softly. She looked peaceful. Changed, but not broken. The bell rang once more. Louder. Closer. Myra's eyes opened. "You followed," she said. Jonas tried to speak, but the words caught. "You're not meant to be here," she said gently. "Not yet." "What is this place?" he asked. Myra smiled sadly. "A seed. A warning. A promise." The chamber shuddered. Earth moaned. "It's waking," she said. "You must go. But you have the map. Finish it. Others will need it." The vines around her glowed. The bell rang louder than ever, a tremor in reality. Jonas stumbled back. The chamber began to close. As he fled upward, the final thing he heard was her voice, soft as dusk. "Tell them, the hollow remembers." Back in his study, far from Marne Hollow, Jonas completed the map. It bore no roads, no borders. Only rings, like the growth lines of a tree, emanating from a single black mark, the door. He annotated it with care. "Here lies the heart of the hollow. Do not wake it. Do not forget." The bell rings still, each dawn. Some hear it. Some don't. But all feel it. In time, others will come. And the hollow will wait.